Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining today's webinar brought to you by ServiceNow, ATN International, and Edgile. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the world-class integrated risk management and security operations capabilities at warp speed with our customer, again, ATN International, and our professional services partner, Agile. We'd like to get into a few introductions here from the ATN International team. Today, we are joined with Nitin Chopra, our VP of Information Technology, Rich Castleberry, the Executive Director of Security, Architecture, and Compliance, and Doug Lane, IT Compliance Manager. From the ServiceNow side, you have myself, Michael Hartman, overseeing the integrated risk management platform, Brandon Sprankle, a managing director at Edgile, and Gerald Carter, another managing director for the Edgile practice. What you're going to be seeing in today's webinar, again, we've already taken care of introductions. We're going to be taking a look at some of the Agile accelerators. We're going to be looking at continuous controls monitoring with the ServiceNow platform, security operations. Gerald Carter is going to be taking us through a brief demonstration, and we're going to be finishing and rounding out with a Q&A session. Starting off here, the vision of ServiceNow and why ATN chose ServiceNow really boils down to the integrated approach of not just one solution on the ServiceNow platform, but multiple solutions working together harmoniously on the platform. ATN had the opportunity to look at multiple solutions on the platform and decided that bringing together multiple areas of focus inside of governance, risk, and compliance, vendor risk management, business continuity management, security operations, and all of this tied back to the larger ServiceNow platform that they were already invested to was going to be the best course of action moving forward for their risk program. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Nitin, who is going to continue on with the reason why ServiceNow was chosen and further on the journey of ServiceNow at ATN. Nitin, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. First of all, I want to thank Agile and ServiceNow for hosting ATN. I'm very sure it will be a great webinar. A little bit about ATN. I want to start off there. ATN International is a publicly traded company that has been investing in communications infrastructure for more than 30 years across the globe through local brands. We are a leading provider of communications infrastructure services by which we digitally empower people and communities so they can connect with the world. Our focus is operating communications infrastructure in underbuilt, underserved markets where there is a growing demand, especially during the pandemic, and need for fast and reliable communications infrastructure. ATN owns and operates various telco assets in the islands of Bermuda, Grand Cayman, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guyana, rural Southwest, and Alaska. I just wanted to give that background. Coming back to the topic at hand, just like any other publicly traded company, we have a lot of local and international laws and regulations to comply with on a day-to-day basis. And we were at a point where we needed a platform that can connect the dots for our IT risk and compliance program from our various IT teams, infrastructure teams, application teams, up to our IT compliance function. You'll hear about that in a moment. Connect that with our internal audit department and external auditors, all in one suite. At that point, ATN had already invested in ServiceNow from a traditional ITSM, IT ops management, ITBM perspective for just under 2 years. And we picked ServiceNow's IRM solution for its ability to not only use all the existing extensible functions that Mike spoke about a minute ago, but also the out-of-box GRC capabilities, anywhere from compliance management, audit management, evidence warehouse. You'll hear about that in a moment. All of that combined kind of hit the spot for what we were looking to do. The basic fact that we could manage our risk in one place and drill down to changes, CIs, all in one place was a powerful solution. To complement all that, we also selected ServiceNow SecOps solution at the same time to complement our growing need to improve IRM capabilities with managing our security incident and vulnerability management program. And to complement all that, the goal was to standardize around a single stack and solve as many problems while managing programs ranging from risk, compliance, and security. Moving to the next slide. So how did we do all that in 16 weeks? Well, just with any other critical initiative, this one came with its own sets of rules, challenges, opportunities, but one that was certainly a very successful rollout. While the out-of-box tool was quite extensible, but our journey of 16 weeks really consisted of 3 main pillars. We formed a team consisting of great ATN team members that were ready to take on this journey with a focus to simplify our then very manual, disjointed processes that consisted of anything from multiple spreadsheets. We know how difficult those are to manage, along with numerous SharePoint sites, folders, etc. We had PM, service management experts from application, infrastructure areas, all came together to make this a successful program. Second pillar was, we already spoke about that, a great tool from ServiceNow, partner in Agile, that came with its own IP, anywhere from regulatory compliance, ARC, which is the industry-specific laws and regulations database. All of that helped us in achieving this in 16 weeks. Last but not the least, having a clear vision and approach of this project from the beginning, where we met with the Agile team, sat down, and figured what do we want to achieve at the end of the day. We want to have clear reporting coming out of IRM. From a SecOps perspective, we were able to do that by implementing SecOps incident response, vulnerability management on the same platform. These pillars, along with the accelerators from Agile, were the main driving force in how we achieved this in 16 weeks. Since last year, we did all this last year, we have already expanding our program with further compliance automation, risk register, security ops playbooks, and currently working with the same team on implementation of Clear Skye's IGA solution to help with automating access reviews. All very exciting stuff. So hopefully that was helpful. Hand it over to you, Brandon, from Agile, to talk about Agile's implementation philosophies.
All right, thank you, Nitin. Oh, too many advances. Right. Sorry about that. Thank you, Nitin. Yeah, and I wanted to unpack 2 of our accelerators that Nitin had mentioned on their journey. One you'll see here is automated regulatory compliance, better known as ARC. And it's really several applications that harmonize mandates and risk matters to allow you to set the foundation for automated control monitoring. If you think about a true accelerator, this is something that normally takes weeks to build this spine that will be your compliance environment. We can do it in really days. And so how do we do that? And so we take 600 sources, over 4,500 citations, and we marry those up into 250-ish, a little bit more, integrated requirements, control, objectives, and risk statements. So that allows you then to have this basis of what you can start to build that spine off of. As I'll just take you from left to right quickly on these specific applications, you see the content here, and as Nitin had mentioned, we have 20 specific ARC content packages that are available on the ServiceNow store. And so these are tailored to specific industries, so think of it as a starting point that you can, again, further refine. Moving to the middle where you see regulatory change management solution, what this does is it really provides as these mandates, like regulations change and standards change, we're releasing quarterly packets that will update your ARC content automatically via an automated workflow. So it's a fully optimized solution where you're able to make sure that you're staying on the latest and greatest and applying those to your content. And then finally, moving over to the third area there, the Agile ARC compliance reporting. This is audience-specific reporting on a mandate basis. So again, it allows you to have out-of-the-box reporting by mandates for specific audiences, and really allows that that reporting to be much more easy and much more understandable for your audience. Moving on to our second accelerator that we use, this is the 5-pass model. And just to point your eye to the far left-hand corner, the way that we approach this is through 5 passes. And as you'll see here, as we go up the scale of passes 1 through 5, while your resources typically do increase, the number of resources to support this, your confidence is going to increase as well. When you start at passes 1 and 2 and even 3, those are quick, and we can, part of that 16-week journey that Nitin was talking about, those are easily achievable, quite frankly, in that space. Just to go through these passes very quickly. So pass 1 is where you're defining those risk requirements and compliance, risk and compliance requirements. You then move into pass 2, which is the applicability matrix. What this does is it applies these requirements either by systems or environments or departments. Just gives you a full view, a comprehensive view of how you apply these different requirements to your company. You then get into diagnostics. We leverage surveys in this area to help identify gaps and even capabilities within your environment. So those are where you're really kind of going through those 3 in this quick start process that we're talking about here. And then as you move into pass 4, which is going into that deep dive assessment, you are documenting those actual controls, you're rating those risks, you're looking for policy exceptions, and then you move into that pass 5 where you are doing that control testing. You're actually ensuring that those controls are operating effectively and identifying any potential issues where they may exist. So this is we find this to be very valuable with our clients. I know with ATN International, it helped us get to that 16-week journey rather quickly, leveraging this. So with that, Nitin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yep. Thanks, Brandon. So continuous controls monitoring. I'll start off with a few comments here and then pass it on to my colleague Doug. So I define continuous controls monitoring as a proactive process and technology used to detect compliance controls and risks associated with an operational environment and report them on a continuous basis. This is not just if we do this right. This shouldn't be just an end of a quarter or end of a year exercise. Practically, if one can achieve that state and can prove to the auditors that we have a sustainable CCM, a continuous controls monitoring process, the need that we all have to weekly, monthly, large-scale evidence collection exercises should be non-events. Still important, but they should be non-events. In other words, a moonshot thinking, if you will, is that we're going to have a program that's going to run on a powerful platform like ServiceNow and ensure healthy balance of compliance with strict yet robust exception handling. How did we do that at ATN? All the work we did last year has laid a foundation by capturing all of our risk statements and control objectives in that first few weeks. From infrastructure deep into backup, security, key application risk areas are all documented in ServiceNow as it relates to our company. In the past, we've never been able to have conversations about IT risks. they've been very reactive conversations, but after the initial 16-week program, we are now able to talk in terms of IT risks, high, medium, low, as it relates to our environment. We are collecting evidence in the evidence warehouse right now, manually or semi-automatically at times, working on the automation with Clear Skye, as we already mentioned. Where we're going next is a set of powerful automations leveraging CMDB within ServiceNow, orchestration and integration hub capabilities. So that's been our approach in the 16 weeks and leading up to now. I'll hand it over to my colleague, Doug Lane, to speak a little bit about our current state of evidence warehouse and other things as it relates to IRM. Doug?
Thank you, Nitin. ATN had a back and forth, very manual email conversation, documentation flowing multiple directions across the world, basically in all our subs, because we have compliance entities just about everywhere that ATN exists. So moving into the evidence warehouse and the Agile project that went with it, we today have over 300 evidence warehouse boxes created. Those are mostly for Sarbanes-Oxley and payment card industry to do collections on. Although several ideas will come up during meetings and conversations on additional ways to use the module functionality even for non-regulatory items. So it is growing to be operational and mature over time, every single audit period or every single month. So we're able to use the ServiceNow UI in a very simple form to create our evidence boxes. We add general information and descriptions, owners and evidence collectors, and optional reviewers of collecting evidence. The information, email communications, and tickets can go to these collectors that we need these specific things for SOX and PCI, and they can attach and view the box themselves and attach things needed and progress the status of the box so that it can be reviewed and then proactively set to stay in that particular evidence warehouse. So during the setup, after a box is done, we can also regenerate the recollection of the same information that we would have potentially every single quarter. And then we have in our Carvel function that we can set so that everything is read-only through this archiving step. The UI information will be read-only, and any attached evidence can still be obtained by the contents of the box. No adds or removal function from the box content. So once it's created, we can add more manual collection. We can add and generate more collection tasks or the recollection process mentioned before. And it's stepping through a very simple steps: begin collection, work in progress, enhanced by ATN. We've created tickets that also can be requested for our IT entities to be able to set their time to and track their the needs that we have for the boxes. We add related records and complete those collections. So we've also used our ATN technical group to modify some of our communication. So it is very obvious that it's coming from the evidence warehouse, and with new collection tasks and closed emails and planned end date approaching type of reminder emails. So it is really brought multiple groups together. My team alone has done about 180 of these, 300. So we know that the other groups are using it for the same way. So any evidence that needs to be sent to our internal audit or even our external auditors can be fetched here. And we're soon, hopefully, going to get internal audit permissions and functionality to actually come into the tool themselves and pull the data that's needed for these satisfying these evidence items that are in the boxes. So, Ned, if you've got something else,
No. Thank you for covering. Thank you for covering the details on the evidence warehouse. Good distinction in where we are and where we are headed. I think that's all we had on the IRM side. I'll hand it over to Gerald from Agile to talk about security operations. Over to you, Gerald.
Thank you, Nitin. So what we're looking at here is that there's a recognition that organizations are in a state of transition. There's a significant amount of workloads that are being moved into cloud environments, and there's still going to be a portion of their operating environment that's still on premises. We also need to establish a command and control environment with consistent playbooks so that we're executing the same controls or monitoring and taking action on events and vulnerabilities as they're coming into the environments and being detected throughout the environment. And finally, SecOps needs additional insight from the CMDB, IRM, and BCM. So when we talk about the additional needs there, the CMDB is going to inform us from a security incident response and vulnerability response around the configuration items and users that the security incidents are written against. We're able to use service mapping and business services and application services to understand the impact of the configuration items that are associated with those incidents and vulnerabilities. So we have a more robust risk scoring capability. In the IRM space, we're able to look at, from an entity perspective, that being business services, application services, configuration item entity types, so Windows servers, Linux servers. We're able to pull through metrics that indicate the effectiveness of the vulnerability response program as well. And then from the BCM perspective, we're relying on the BIA processes to provide business criticality inputs that get fed back into the risk scoring capabilities. So the great thing that we've developed at Agile is our approach to implementing our quick starts, our content solution, the ARC, our ARC reporting capabilities, evidence warehouse. We have a build philosophy where we want to talk about reporting first. We want to understand from Nitin's perspective, and Doug and Rich, what do they need to know about their IRM program, their security operations program, to be able to have confidence that their programs are receiving the information, their programs are operating effectively. So we really want to drive in on what is that information they need to gather to support the program, as well as answer questions that are being asked of them from their board. Secondly, as we're going through our requirements and build process, we want to have rapid builds and walkthroughs as we're getting closer to the desired state of the configuration. So we'll meet with the teams, as we're going through the configuration process, to get input and feedback early on in that process, so that we're all on the same page in ensuring that when we get to the end of our configuration and before we start our user acceptance testing, we know that we're delivering the right thing. We also provide training and communication plans. So we'll create training for all of the different components that we're delivering from our programs, so that we're addressing the needs of the teams that are going to be managing IRM, SIR, vulnerability response, as well as targeted training to the end users, the users who will be consuming those applications. And finally, we look at workflow last. While it's important to have a good, clear understanding of what the processes are going to be while we're going through requirements and completing the configuration, oftentimes workflows can be an inhibitor to success in achieving rapid value from a delivery perspective. So we want to make sure that we're getting the configuration in early, and then looking for the opportunities to automate where there's the most friction in the environment. We also want to make sure, from an approach standpoint, that we're focusing on configuration and not customization. It's important to help organizations understand that if they're going down the customization path, that's going to incur technical debt and make it harder for them to upgrade their applications as each platform release and application release is made available to them. We also accelerate with a minimal viable product. We have predefined templates for configurations, workflows, and best practices that we've built in coordination with ServiceNow. We also want to focus on enablement. We've got a team of deep functional and technical experts that have a lot of scar tissue in how we've worked with teams over the past few years to get as close as we can to a desired state that meets an 80-20 expectation from a client's perspective. And when we look at successful implementations, we want to spend time up front to document their process and details, make sure that our reporting vision has clear understanding from our stakeholders and that we're aligned. And again, we are really trying to aim for a minimal viable product. We also want to make sure that we are not customizing the platform to fit an outdated spreadsheet or email-based process. And we want to avoid developing complex processes with significant interdependencies across multiple stakeholders in the organization. And with that, I will turn this over to Rich to walk us through how we went through the implementation with the security operations program.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Thanks, Gerald. So, I mean, I think we took a pretty reasonable approach. I think it's an approach that a lot of people use, right? What quick wins can we get up front? To your point about that minimal viable product, the first thing we turned on was vulnerability. So we took our Qualys data, we fed that into ServiceNow, and it almost immediately helped us change a conversation with application owners, right? Instead of security and vulnerability doing stuff to the application owners, right? We're suddenly partnering with them to help close vulnerabilities because they had the visibility to know what was going on, right? And the ability to run on-demand scans. It really helped change the dialogue that we had with them. And so that was a great first win, right? It's always good to start with a win. And then we, as we get a little more mature, we layered in security incident response, and security incident response has just been one of those really, really good tools. We tied that in with our phishing button, so users can click report phish. It automatically opens a security incident. It allows us to respond to it. We can respond to other security incidents that users open, and just allows us to prioritize our work. We're a small team, like everybody, and being able to make sure we focus on the most important things first was really helpful. The other thing you get from security incident response is after action reports. So, if you use the tool properly and you put data in there, when the incident is done, you can literally click a button and have it generate a report showing all of the actions you took with timelines, and being able to take the reporting time from hours, days down to minutes and seconds. And so that was a really big win for us. The other thing that I guess we should have known about it, right, because we talked about reporting first as being one of the steps, but because we started having data around what security incidents we were getting, we were able to understand, and this is sort of a surprising metric to me. I don't think it should have been in hindsight, but 97+% of our security incidents were really phishing attempts. And so when we talk about sustaining and working on creating additional playbooks, because we have good data, we can make better decisions. And so we decided the first playbook we want to work on automating is phishing. To Gerald's point, it's almost a built-in integration. You just need to configure it. We use Office 365. It allows us to automatically allow the security personnel to identify, yes, this really is a phish. Yes, we need to take action. Automatically identify where else in the email environment the phishing emails are, to delete them, and then block the user with a click of a button. Where in the past, when we had to do that, we would have to open a ticket, send it back and forth to the email group, and while it was a fairly streamlined process, it was definitely more work than it is today with the automation. And so, because we have that good reporting, we can make logical next steps and make sure that we're prioritizing our workforce appropriately. But rather than hear me talk about it, let's let Gerald actually show you what it looks like. So I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Rich. So at this point, I'm going to do a couple of demos here. The first one is going to be related to really showing what, from a reporting standpoint, what the value of the ARC content brings to the organization. In the second demo, I'm going to highlight some of the features and functionalities that the MITRE framework can provide to organizations as they've implemented both security incident response and vulnerability response. So with that, I will start the demo here.
And we can see your screen.
All right, thank you. So what we're looking at here is one of the reports that we bring to organizations from an ARC perspective. And what we're looking at here is essentially a risk roll-up across the risk framework that we've developed. So we categorize, as Brandon was saying earlier, our risk taxonomy around 6 risk categories and 26 risk topics. And we're seeing those risk categories here below, and underneath each of these is those 26 risk topics. This allows us, from a framework perspective, as we're providing the ability to address individual control attestations, tests that are going out from a assessment perspective and the past failures, and developing the inherent and residual risk ratings across those frameworks as a roll-up capability. We're able to show both a quantitative and qualitative risk roll-up across all of those 26 categories. If I move to the residual risk tab here, we further are breaking down the residual risk into the individual 5 categories here. We have a heat map that is populated here to show additional data, and this is going to load here in just a second. It's a little bit of a lag there. And we can see, as we mentioned earlier, we've got the ability to look at the residual risk across various entity and entity types. If I wanted to take a look at a individual entity here, I can further filter that down. And if I was curious about this one almost certain likelihood critical impact bucket here, I could click into that and it would show me specifically which risk statements have those high residual risks. Okay. So again, this is really driven by the ARC contents capability to gather, aggregate, and roll up both inherent and residual risk across the platform. All right. Moving on to the second demo here. What we're looking at here is the MITRE ATT&CK Map Navigator. And what this is doing is it's pulling in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, allowing an organization to evaluate their ability to perform detections for each of the tactics and patterns, as well as the sub-patterns, sub-techniques, as well as be able to evaluate their ability to mitigate any of the tactics and sub-techniques as well. I wanted to highlight as well that with vulnerability response integrated here, we're able to also look at where we're seeing the manifestation of those tactics and patterns through the vulnerability scanners. So we're able to tie CVEs to these patterns and tactics and be able to report on them and visually confirm that you have detection capabilities in place against these tactics. Likewise, with security incident response in place, we're also able to look at security incidents from a detection capability as well. So this gives an organization validation and confirmation of their ability to rate and have confirmation around their detection and mitigation capabilities. All right, and with that, I'll return And I believe this is back to Michael.
I'll take a stab at that, Nitin. I think we've talked about my colleagues. We've talked about our journey, 16 weeks, where we were late last year, and subsequent upgrades we have done to our risk and compliance program. We have a better data handle now, whether it comes to CMDB, security operations, etc. Some of the organic, I would say, next steps are to leverage the power of the platform and the data that we have now, and use it to implement business continuity programs. We operate in some very high hurricane-prone areas. We have a good business continuity program. We have a good business continuity program outside of ServiceNow, but working very closely now with the same team to look at how we can put that in ServiceNow. Similarly, as it comes to vendor risk management, in today's day and age of almost a cyber warfare out there, it's important for us, and not every other company perhaps, for us to have a good handle on what vendors are serving our digital needs as it relates to the risk they're bringing to the table. So these are some of the areas we're looking at as next steps, and always continuously looking at improving our evidence warehouse automation. Rich, Doug, feel free to add other things or other points if you like.
Nope, I think you did a great job covering it. Thanks.
Cool. Back to you, Mike.
Excellent. So for everyone on the call, if you would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to both the ServiceNow and the Edgile team. We will be following up and routing any questions, any inquiries for more information through the ServiceNow team and the Edgile team. But we'd like to get to a few questions that we have here that were posed in the chat. First one being posed to the ATN team. How are the integrated risk management and SecOps being integrated with inside ATN International? How are those two products working together? I imagine that would be a good one for Nitin here.
Sure, I'll start. So when it comes to IRM and SecOps, I feel the risk statements and CMDB together are where those two programs come together. In terms of adoption, just like with any other new system, any other new process, there's a huge OCM piece to these capabilities. For them to be successful, you really need the entire organization to come together. I'd say it's a marathon, not a sprint, but surely as the team, security teams, compliance team are starting to use these tools, we're starting to see the data, that the reports that we have talked a few times already, as it relates to incident response, risk, and compliance reporting coming out of these programs. So it's slowly but surely all coming together now.
Excellent. And another one we had here is specific to your IRM and SecOps journey. Are there any lessons learned that you can share here with those on the phone?
I can start. Rich, Doug, chime in as you see fit. I'll start with IRM at least. For that, I would say it's a vast ecosystem within the platform, and it's set up, I'm sure, to support smaller entities, medium ones like us, and even the larger ones that have hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of assets and risk statements. So from a lessons learned perspective, and Agile helped us in the beginning itself, is to find the right balance for the individual companies or entities. Let's not boil the ocean. This is another one of those projects that there isn't a training session that we end up with. It's an ongoing refreshers. There's a lot in the platform to explore. Define your scope and stick to it would be my advice or lesson we learned from the initiative.
Outstanding.
That helps.
This is Doug. I'd like to share a couple things, and it's coming from this past project into another project that we're doing now with Clear Skye. The project sprint style of implementation worked really good with us, and that was related to introducing the topics and having discovery or discussions with the Agile team to then create requirements, and then with a Agile-led UAT in referencing the business requirements, that went right into self-led UAT from myself and my team, and they were always able then to address any UAT results, any fixes, any additional testing that needed to be done. And we were able then to sign off on the set of weeks or less module sections, and then move on. And although it was so much information, we've had to adjust some staff to make sure that they are more dedicated into ServiceNow initiatives and looking for more to come, and that way we will be more operational with our controls and our diagnostic surveys, and then also the risk and issues modules for IRM.
Yeah, I wrote two quick things down to remind myself, not so much project or product related as project management related. I love the 5-pass methodology, right? Because you get the crawl, walk, run going, and you get value right away. So definitely love that. And then the other thing we did that, again, seems like a simple thing, but we recorded all of the training scenarios, so we can actually go back and rewatch them. And I don't know about Doug, but I know I've gone back and rewatched a bunch of them to remind myself, what did they say about this piece, and how am I supposed to do that? Because to your point, there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's easy to forget if it's taking you a little while to implement certain things. So being able to go back and watch that training has been super valuable to me.
I totally agree, and use those recordings quite often.
Well, that concludes the content that ServiceNow, ATN, and Edgile had today. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. We hope you found it valuable. As a final wrap up here, if you'd like to learn more about any of our on-demand webinars, please feel free to visit servicenow.com/risk for any and all of our ServiceNow featured webinars and upcoming events. Speaking of upcoming events, we have ServiceNow's largest user conference. For those on the West Coast, ServiceNow Knowledge live from Las Vegas at the Venetian Expo Center in just over a month, May 25th to May 26th. You can click to register in the follow-up slide deck. And for those that are in the East Coast of the US here, just under a month, May 11th to the 12th at the Javits Center here in New York City. Please get your registration in and join us for ServiceNow's Knowledge event. We will have all product specific, all product tracks at our knowledge events. Come see us live in person and work with your account team and partners to get to the event. Other than that, please feel free to fill out our survey here that will be sent post-event. And thank you again to the ATN International team, the Agile team, and all of you for joining today's event.